You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hey there, guys, and welcome to Fan Theory Queries, where we analyze fan theories from all over the internet, but it's mostly Reddit. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer.
Cool. So
I am
this
cool.
week-
Cool.
I'm very cool.
How do you like that transition?
Welcome to a new week.
Yeah. Hope everybody's having a great week so far. Anyway, I'm going to stop being awkward here and get to my theory, which
Impossible.
is from...
You'll never stop being
Yeah, impossible.
That's true. Which is from user Leroen Juan. And they say, in G.I. Joe, COBRA was a CIA project gone horribly out of control and was aided by major American corporations. Okay.
Yep. That's how they be.
Per the comics, COBRA was organized as a paramilitary group in the American city of Springfield. As it grew and expanded in power, it developed several partnerships, mostly with Mars Corporation, aka Destro's business, and its PMC, the Iron Grenadiers, and extensive enterprises with Tomax and Zaymot, stated to be Coruscant ex-mercenaries. Sebastian Blood, who is said to have fought for Rhodesia, and Wild Weasel, who is said to have honed his skills as a pilot in the Rhodesian conflict. Now, I need to talk about the historical business plot. Organized in 1933, a plot for a fascist overthrow of the U.S. government, which featured considerable participation from the American Legion, a U.S. paramilitary organization. COBRA is very similar to actual libertarian ideas of seasteading. Now, for the context, COBRA debuted in 1982. What was happening in 1982? A, the Argentinian junta had just been overthrown after losing the Falklands. B, the Rhodesian government had been overthrown. C, Ronald Reagan had narrowly survived an assassination attempt that would have placed George Bush as president. D, the Brazilian junta was on the brink of collapse. And E, the junta of El Salvador was facing sharp criticism and sanctions from the USA over various massacres and genocides.
Is there a choice F for all of the above?
Yes. So let's talk about Operation Condor, a real-life conspiracy to replace the governments of South America with fascist right-wing dictators.
You guys, we're actually getting into real conspiracy theories on Fan Theory Queries.
That's weird.
Yeah, this is an interesting
This is crazy.
crossover. My theory, COBRA was originally meant to be an Operation Gladio, stay-behind network for the USA to ensure a rapid restoration of order in the event of nuclear war. COBRA received not only the backing of Mars, but of major defense corporations. Evidence to support the defense industry backing. 1. The COBRA Rattler is essentially a General Dynamics A-10 Thunderbolt 2 with extra nacelles and STOL capabilities. 2. The Rattler is basically an Avenger AA vehicle. Evidence to support the COBRA is Condor. 1. The most famous unit of the Brazilian military is the Expeditionary Force, known as the Smoking Cobras. I don't know why they needed to put 1, because there's only one piece of evidence. So what is actually going on with COBRA? It's an alternate universe where disgruntled far-right CIA assets teamed up with South American dictatorships and the American defense industry to attempt a fascist coup in response to the Carter administration. They failed to get their puppet George Bush into office. They lost Rhodesia. Now they're coming home to overthrow the USA and establish a fascist regime. Wow.
Yikes, that's scary.
Yeah. So I'm going to, when I talk about this theory, I want to focus mostly on the actual, like, G.I. Joe COBRA side of it, and
As you
speak
should.
less on the actual,
And not on history.
historical conspiracy theorist type stuff that they mentioned in here, because that gets a little touchy when you start getting into that stuff, and honestly, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So
So were
first off,
you a regular? Did you watch the TV show a lot?
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. My brother and I grew up watching the GI Joe cartoon. We had all the GI Joe toys. We played with them, and we were neck deep in GI Joe, and we absolutely
That's
loved
pretty
it.
deep.
And yeah, so I want to
Well, I
know.
mean, they were little kids.
That's
I
true.
mean,
Yeah.
not that tall.
um, so I wanted to know, like, you guys, like, did either of you really get into GI Joe, or
No,
was that something?
Absolutely not.
no,
I kind of figured, Laura, that you probably didn't. I didn't want to stereotype.
that's
though.
sexist.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I was not a GI Joe person, and my brother wasn't either.
Mm.
It wasn't a thing. Like, I don't even know what network did that show on.
I don't remember. I was too young to pay attention.
It feels
to
like a
networks.
CBS thing. For some reason, my knee-jerk reaction would be CBS. But
I was gonna say USA Network.
Hmm.
I get it. So,
Okay.
I will reveal something about myself.
Yes.
To everybody, to the listeners that do not know. And Laura, I've never probably explicitly stated this to you, but I'm sure you've probably come to the conclusion on your own. Growing up, anything that was not overtly, but even remotely, I guess, manly or masculine, did not strike my fancy, tickle my fancy. You like the phrase I use? I did not and still do not like sports. I have no interest in anything sports related. GI Joes are manly men. They are fighting. They tough.
And women.
And women. They're tough. They fight. They're brave. I'm brave, but more. I'm brave in the toaster sense, not the soldier sense. And I mean, I had two older sisters, and just my dad was more like, he liked his own thing. He didn't really care to force it on me like we force our geekdom onto our children. So
We do not. It's just there, and they like it too.
that's true.
They have the same genetics that you guys do, so
That's
they got
true.
the good stuff.
So yeah,
True.
this type of intellectual property did not appeal to me, although I'm pretty sure I had maybe a GI Joe or two, but the smaller ones,
I'm sure you did.
the smaller ones, I think
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
remember having, and I could vaguely recall a clip or two from a show, but that may have just been like a Family Guy gag or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so I was initially into a lot of the stuff that you said that you weren't, Spencer, growing up, like sports and things like that. But there was a time when I was still pretty young, actually, where I just stopped caring about sports after I found the nerd culture and was full on into that. But despite that, I never stopped loving like my GI Joes and like Hot Wheels and those types of things. In fact, my grandmother handmade some parachutes for
Whoa.
my GI Joe action figures
Cool.
for my brother and I,
Aw,
so that we could
that's so
like bundle them up
sweet.
and like just chunk them into the air as high as we could, and they would actually work. Like, she did a great job. And they would
That's
just float
great.
down. Yeah. So GI Joes were a big thing for me growing up. Like I was really into that because it was as close to being able to watch like the 80s action movies that I wanted to watch,
Like A-Team.
that
The
I was allowed to
A-Team.
watch. No, I
Rambo.
did grow up watching the A-Team. I loved the A-Team. But like the Rambos, the Predators, things like that, I wanted to watch those
okay.
movies, but I wasn't allowed to because I was too young and they were hyper violent. So my parents steered me away from those, but they allowed us to get into GI Joes. So this is going to take a lot of digging in my memory to come up with facts for this, because it's been a long time since I've really thought about GI Joes. But I did at one time have a very deep knowledge in the lore of all the characters and how they were related and all the factions and things like that. So hopefully I can remember enough to shed some light on these things.
Did
But
you
So
just-
OP specifically references the comics. Did you read the comics?
So that is one medium of GI Joes that I did not get into. I never actually read the comics. My knowledge comes strictly from the cartoon and just the information that would be on the backs of the packaging for the action figures and stuff like that.
Did you watch
Because each action figure had some facts and stuff about the character.
Did you watch any of the live action movies?
I did, and while I will fully admit that they're not like Oscar-worthy cinema, I personally, just from the nostalgia factor, thoroughly enjoyed both of at least the first two movies. I didn't watch the new Snake Eyes standalone movie, but yeah, I genuinely enjoyed them. I thought they were a lot of fun. They were a blast. They're not meant to be super deep. Like for me, they're just like the
Fast and the Furious,
shut your brain off popcorn action flick movies, kind of like Transformers, and just like
Fast and Furious.
Yeah, just something that I watch just to have fun and get a little adrenaline rush. I'm not expecting to see Oscar-worthy performances coming out of it. So
I get enough adrenaline rushes from my children. I'll take Oscar performances any day.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the actual theory. I want to know what you guys think without having the knowledge behind it, just on the surface level of the theory. How viable do you think this is?
It's kind of... You go ahead, ladies first.
Thank you. I actually I like the first half of it, that this is a paramilitary group funded from like private security, made up of private security firms, those soldiers for hire basically that you can find nowadays that are sent to like Africa to fight in those civil wars and whatnot for American interests, or mainly American business interests. That totally works for me. I don't see it having anything to do. They're talking about this taking place in 1982. I wasn't born until 1987, and I don't have that much history knowledge of like the Carter administration and the Reagan administration. So I can't really speak to that so much of it having to do with everything that was happening in South America. But I do like that idea of, because from what I know, at least like Cobra Commander, although he speaks kind of funny, he's speaking with an American accent. Like,
yeah,
Cobra are all American from what I know, correct?
For the most part, yeah. There are some points where they try to kind of force them into like an evil, like Eastern European type situation,
Russian?
But kind of with some of the characters. But yeah, it's, for the most part, they have American accents.
So what?
Yeah, so that totally makes sense that they could be people that were forced into this by CIA experiments gone wrong, or these corporations that are like, this government isn't doing what I want it to do, so I'm going to hire these people to take out our government and try to force a coup. Works for me.
I'm going to need a little bit of clarification or explanation of what Cobra actually represents and what they're, other than being the bad guys to G.I. Joe. Like, what do they want? What do they do? Why are they bad?
They're just kind of the stereotypical 80s antithesis of the good guys. Like, they want to take over the world. They want to be in charge of everything. Cobra Commander wants to be the one leading the entire world, that kind of situation.
And so, of course, if you're going to do that, you start in the U.S.
Yes. They
or the U.S. is the world.
Yeah. Especially at that time. Yeah. But I like I said, I haven't read the comics. They may have fleshed them out further in the comics. In fact, I'm pretty sure they did. But with my knowledge and the resources that I experienced, I would have to say they're just kind of very surface level. I want to take over the world.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just trying to distill this thing. So I'm make sure I'm tracking here. Here their points is that they have, Cobra has similar weaponry to USA weapons, looks like, and also the smoke Cobra Condor thing. So that's it. It's just a
Yeah, so
similarity in their equipment, and
they're saying that they have similar equipment based on the backing of the defense industry, which also supplies the American government and the GI Joes. And then they're saying that Cobra is Condor because the most famous unit of the Brazilian military is the Expeditionary Force, which was also known as the Smoking Cobras.
Okay, so they use the same word.
Yeah.
And that's another point of evidence. Okay.
That all you have for
I think
thoughts?
I think so.
Okay. So I can't say too much about what I think of this without giving away what my rating is going to be. So I'm going to read through some of these comments, and then we can kind of find a way to land towards the end of this theory.
On our
so
feet.
Yes. From MTB 8490210, Cobra Commander's background doesn't work, but one guy couldn't do what the commander did. He could have taken it over, especially with the Freds and other cosmetic replacements grabbing spots, not just in the official U.S. government, but Cobra itself.
Is it supposed to be Freds or Feds?
I think it's supposed to be Feds.
That's why I
think
laughed.
there's a typo there, but we're gonna go with Freds for now. My memories the rank and file Cobra troopers stayed loyal to the fake Cobra commander along with the other Freds.
No, they meant to say
who were so dedicated they gave up their identity to the cause against Serpentor, who had the toys being discontinued.
Okay.
That
Do you
comment
remember
doesn't make
Serpentor?
much sense. I don't remember Serpentor. I'm not denying that character's existence, but it's not in my memory banks. So probably not one that I had.
Is a Cobra character from the Real American Heroes series.
Interesting.
I
don't remember.
His whole costume looks like a snake. It's so weird.
Oh yeah, I just looked it up. That's crazy. I don't remember
he
that
has
character.
Snakes around his legs.
Yeah.
He overthrew Cobra Commander and proved to be a more effective leader, but was ultimately more of a monster than a man.
Wow, I need to go back and watch that show because I don't remember any of that story.
Eventually, Serpentor was betrayed when Cobra Commander regained control of Cobra by using science to transform him into an iguana, at least temporarily.
Wow, how do I not remember that?
I'm embarrassed for you that you don't remember that. That sounds pretty memorable, but
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
This is nuts.
Anyways, from Stone Gold X, if this was true, there's no way Larry Hama wouldn't have been explicit about it. Not that it doesn't work, but no way Larry doesn't go there if that's what he thought. Then in response to that, Big Bacon Boy Pig says, Larry fleshed
I'm hungry
them.
for a sandwich.
I know. Larry fleshed them out, but he didn't create them. An exec at Hasbro did, Donald Levine. He served in the military. He based the name on a movie, The Story of G.I. Joe. It was a pro-America propaganda during the war. G.I. Joe, the toys, are propaganda too. OP was right in terms of it was an answer to anti-American views caused by things he talked about, the illegal things CIA did in South America, for example. Donald Levine later made a Bin Laden action figure for the CIA. He likely did have CIA ties. They are involved in all corporations.
Oh my.
It's interesting. And then Big Bacon Boy Pig has his own comment separate from that says, what if Cobra were secretly the good guys all along? Nah, that's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
Oh.
So basically they were saying that it is possible because G.I. Joe toys were propaganda, and if COBRA was a failure experiment or group from the CIA working in South America, it would kind of make sense because one of the creators has ties to the CIA as well. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I am totally ready to rate this theory.
Well, it sounds like we're ready to rate this theory.
wait, before we go to break, did you guys know that we sell cool merch like mugs, t-shirts, phone cases, and more, and that you can get our logo or one of our best quotes on them?
Yes.
Yes.
Great job, team, because knowing is half the battle.
Michael wrote that, not me.
Michael, did you come up with that just so you could quote G.I. Joe?
Maybe.
Calamity most foul.
What? Not you too.
Imbeciles, dunderheads, why are great men always surrounded by lesser beings?
See, Spencer gets it. It's fun.
How about we just cut to the chase and get to the ratings?
Yo, Joe! The highest rating that we have is Genius. This is reserved for only the best theories, which we believe are better than the actual canon. The next step down is Plausible. It's a good theory, it's believable. Unlikely is next. It's not a terrible theory, but pretty unlikely, as the name suggests. And then the last thing is Preposterous. These are the theories that are just stupid. Basically, we're all dumber for having listened to them. If you don't mind, I will go ahead and kick this off.
What if I do mind?
Too bad.
Okay.
Oh, okay. He wrote his own transitions, and now he's just going to do it.
Now.
Yeah. Look at me. Look at me. I'm the captain now.
Yeah, so for me, as much as I would love to give this a Genius, I can't because they dip too much into actual conspiracy theory on this. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have to knock it down to a Plausible because what they said makes sense to me. And especially being backed up by some of the things in the comments, I genuinely think that this is possible. This could happen. So for me, I rate it Plausible.
I agree with that. I think that with the way that the cartoon show was presented, because I do have a little bit of peripheral knowledge of it, although I didn't regularly watch. I think that the way it was portrayed, and just a generalization you can make of many shows of the time period, it's within our generation, but COBRA was basically a blank canvas, and you can paste any kind of label onto them. So it is very convenient to be able to paste this label onto them. I prefer, though, with the supposedly, seemingly, and possibly what was originally meant to be a surface level thing. Let's keep it surface level of the first half of the theory of, yeah, sure, they're this secret organization operating outside the realm of the United States government, seeking to overthrow the U.S. government. Period, statement, declarative sentence. We don't need to go any further than that, really. I mean, come on, it's G.I. Joe. We're good.
Yeah.
Preposterous. I think this theory is preposterous. The evidence is non-existent, as I made clear earlier, and the fact that the prominent person working on it, Donald Levine, who is he again?
He was. Let me go back to.
It says that he worked at Hasbro, right?
Yeah, he was an executive at Hasbro.
So Donald created G.I. Joe. Okay. He served in the military. Okay.
Yeah.
So lots of people. So
not a lot of people made G.I. Joe, though.
But I bet somebody that worked on G.I. Joe, at least one other person, was in the military. But anyway, all that to say, I think that this theory is too specific. of an origin for COBRA. And with my limited knowledge, as we've kind of, I mean, you said that COBRA is a blank slate. Michael, you said that COBRA is kind of like a generic bad guy of the 80s. And even generic dumb organizations have some kind of like point or whatever. I don't know if my thinking is if this is where they came from, there should be more guidance, vision from the original falling out or whatever happened to continue their motivations forward. And as far as I'm assuming, because this theory or comments don't point to anything else that establishes that of, oh, remember this episode where this references this, or they made this comment, or anything like that lends credence to this theory, other than simply that however many episodes of this show there are toys, there are comics, all of this wealth of content, the best they can do is, oh, well, the equipment looks similar. It's just preposterous to me. Not enough there to even consider it.
That's
unlikely. Fair. Thank you. I like to be fair. Cool. So we've all rated, which brings us to this point, my favorite, not always, but sometimes my favorite point in the show. Not that it's over, but when I have clever, creative, funny things that I find on Reddit. I'm stalling because I didn't write anything. Oh, here we go. Oh, so I'm doing this off the top of my head. Michael, have you ever been embarrassed so much that you like do something physically to yourself to not be noticed, like that you can hide?
That describes the entirety of middle school and most of high school for me. Okay.
Now, Laura, let me ask you a question. Yeah. Have you ever watched a movie, like a sequel or something, a follow-up, and there's been like a really bizarre transformation with a character? Like, why do they look that way? Why is their costume different? Why do they have 2 legs instead of 3? You know, has anything like that, but you don't ever have an answer for it. It's just inexplicable. Have you ever been there?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, so let's merge those together, and then we get this fascinating movie detail about Avengers Endgame. One of my favorite movies. This was pointed out, actually, Michael, I think you might agree with this one. This was pointed out by the Lemmy, and they write that the film Captain Marvel was so bad that Brie Larson changed her hair for Avengers Endgame so that she will be unrecognizable. I mean, how else do you explain that haircut? I can't.
I don't know.
I almost didn't recognize it. If it weren't for the costume, I would have known it was her.
We all recognize that that's comic book accurate, that's how she looks in the comics. However, the transition from Captain Marvel to that, we have no explanation for why that happened. Yeah, that
we do now.
And that's not even how she looks in all the comics. Like, there are some comics where she looks like she did in the Captain Marvel movie. So there was no reason for them to change.
And sometimes she looks like a really strong, brown-haired man with a lightning bolt on his chest.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, get it? Thanks.
Got it. Yes. I get it.
I'll be here all.
If you don't get it, then you should join our Patreon so that we can explain it to you in Discord.
I'm sure Spencer would love to spend an hour of his day going into detail about the differences between Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel.
And Captain Marvel, don't forget Captain Marvel.
Oh yes, Captain Marvel too.
Well, on that note, this has been Fan Theory Queries. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer. In our next episode, we ask, are the band members of Marvin and the Starlighters from Back to the Future time travelers? Subscribe to Fan Theory Queries so you don't miss out on that and other fascinating fan theories. Fan Theory Queries is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to their other fine shows like The Unbiased Science Podcast, The Sit Down, a Mafia History podcast, and I Know What Scares You,